And my dad let me sit in a jail overnight because I did something stupid, and he thought, guess what? You make stupid decisions, you get stupid rewards.
Roll the intro.
Hello? No, I know. No, don't worry about it. Season 4 starts right now. Let's go! Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Under the Influence. We're so glad you're here. Thank you for being here. We just got a nice little dress rehearsal, which was fun. We realized super fun. Like 4 minutes in, our video wasn't working. But video, good. Audio, I'm assuming, still good. So here we are.
Thumbs are up.
Thumbs, all 10 thumbs in the room are up.
All 10 thumbs.
Thank you for being here. We're so glad you're here. As you'll notice, for us, it's you won't notice this, but for us, it's been a little while. For poor Byron over here, it's been like a month. I'm going to speed run through everything we did. Ready? For us, it's been a little while. For you, it's been a week. For Byron, it's been a month. Oh my goodness. And it really has. But we have with us this week a guest.
The best part is they won't get the joke.
No, they won't. Have no idea why we found it funny to say guest.
But our new guest is our old boss. All of us have worked for him at some point or another, and a lot of the time when we were working for him, we were all working for him at the same time.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Crazy.
It was whack, I tell you.
It was whack. It was whack. Yeah, I mean, I've been working. I have worked for him since I was a kid, right? Since I was like 10 years old or younger. I don't know how old.
10's right.
Yeah.
You enjoyed because it got you out of your homeschool.
Yeah, I was homeschooled for a while, and this guy took pity on me and said, hey, you want to come work for me? You can do some caterings here and there.
Come and work in the steel mill. We got an opening.
Dangerous thing to do, to find some random 10-year-old kid and just say, you want to come work? Labor laws and all that.
I mean,
if the parents sign on the line, it's fine.
That's true.
Your parents were very agreeable.
That's true. They were fine with it.
They wanted you out of the house.
Yeah.
They wanted you out of the house.
No, I look back on those days very fondly. I had a lot of fun, like getting my schoolwork done really early and then going to do a catering or just skipping school altogether and go to work with my boss. And it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. But thank you guys for being here. There's a quick little intro. Sorry. To get this stuff out of the way, if you want to be a part of the discussion, the things that we talk about on the show, or you want to be more involved in the ministry as a whole, or you want to get regular updates about the show, like if we have to skip a week or something's going on, go to discord.gg/Christian Influence. Discord.gg/Christian Influence. Boom. There it is. Go there. You can join our Discord server. If you don't know what Discord is, it's kind of like Facebook groups meets old school internet forums together, right? It's something, there's a main theme and then a bunch of forums basically. And we've got a spot there for this show. You can get involved. Also, if you want to be more involved in the discussion, another way you can do that is go to YouTube, watch the YouTube video version because it's better, and leave us a comment on YouTube about the things about, the episode you liked. If we ask a question, you can answer it there. The last episode that came out had a ton of discussion. It was really fun to get involved there and to talk to some of you. We had a lot. Like the last episode that came out is the one where it's just Levi and I, and we watched that George Janko clip. And one of the viewers left, I mean, the longest comment ever, fully talking about all these things. It was really cool. And I read through it. I have yet to respond because there's about 10 main points to respond to. But Mexican K-pop star, you know who you are. That was a great, synopsis of the things we talked about and response. And I love getting to see that. It means a lot. So it's fun to respond, and I will do that soon. Well, at this point, hopefully I've already done it.
Yeah, hopefully it's long been responded to. If not, that'll be pretty sad.
Yeah. But yeah, so go there. And if you listen to the show on a podcasting platform like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or something like that, leave us a review, an honest one. If you really don't like the show, that's fine. But we'd love it if you like the show to leave us a 5-star review. It helps people find the show. And if you leave one with like a fun thing in it, we'll read it on air for you. We'll read your username out as long as it's appropriate and read your review that you left us. So maybe do it. And then last but not least, we have bonus content if you ever want it over on Patreon. It's a way that you can support this show and help us to keep making it. Patreon.com/Christian Influence. And if you do support us there, you get some bonus content here and there, some extra clips from different episodes and things like that. And not just from this show, sometimes bonus stuff from our D&D podcast, sometimes bonus stuff from something new that's coming. So check it out there. Boom. That's it. That's all the icky gross social media, like and subscribe stuff out of the way. To get us started here. Would you rather be a wizard in a medieval fantasy land or a superhero in a modern city? Think about it, listener. Think about it. Put a comment down below. Let us know what you would rather be. But to open us up for a little bit of icebreaker conversation, would you rather be a wizard in a fantasy land or a superhero in a modern city? For me, at first, I was like, man, this is such an easy one to answer. It's in my Discord name. But then I was like, yeah, but I also really think Spider-Man's cool.
It would all depend on the superpower I had.
Yeah, that's the big difference,
And
right?
what kind of wizard?
Yeah, so if it's just a wizard in a medieval fantasy, I'm assuming you're like Merlin. Well, it's not a medieval
Do you get
fantasy
to,
land.
do you get to
Like
choose
Gandalf?
your like your type of wizardry,
Well, what if you're just
or
general
is
wizard?
it just like general?
Well, that means you get all of it. Like Gandalf, is he a specific school
I mean,
of
Gandalf
magic?
isn't a wizard in the sense of how other
Fantasies have 'em.
fantasies
No.
use wizards.
Yeah.
No. So maybe you can pick your setting.
Pick your poison.
Pick your setting, like your fantasy land and what
Oh,
type of wizard, and then because you would have to, right? Because the same is
Yeah,
true of the
yeah.
superhero one. Like what modern city? They're all so different. I mean, they are different, but if you're a superhero in one of them,
Well,
it's
like, I
pretty
wouldn't
much
want
the
to be a necromancer just because.
You wouldn't want
You,
to.
can, you
No.
can make as many friends as you want, though.
That's
Yeah.
true. You're never without
Yeah.
friends.
You're never without friends.
Even those
You
that
can always make
don't
more.
want to be your friends,
Yeah.
you can make them your friends. Yeah, I mean, to me, I think I would rather be a wizard along the same lines as like, oh man. Actually, I don't know. I really like the way magic works in the Aragon books. I think it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Just because it's just
Yeah.
words. Like it's this extra language. And if you can translate the words that you want to say into that language and imbue them with power, then they do what you want. So you just know the word for fire. You can manipulate fire, And then,
Brazinger.
yeah.
Yeah.
Brazinger. And then there's other stuff. And that book series is fun in that way. But then there's a lot of cool magic systems and other things. But I mean, I don't know if that's a wizard. Like I'm thinking like,
Well, it's definitely a magic user. So,
yeah, okay.
You know.
So if the magic users there count as wizards, then yeah, I would probably pick to be a wizard in that sort of fantasy world.
Yeah, but think about like if you're in a modern city with telepathy as your superpower, you can read minds. So you're
I would
gonna
never
be-
want that.
So like,
You'd be financially fit for the rest of your life because. Well,
I feel like
I
it's
would never want telepathy.
It's true, but you would know every single
Yeah.
thing that someone says about you or about someone
Everything
else.
that people are
and, like,
thinking, like,
you're always getting information. You can't ever stop.
yeah, but you can.
if you
you're-
once
I'm
you get
assuming
control,
you can control it.
Yeah.
Okay.
even
Yeah,
if
you
you
could
can though,
dampen it.
like you're like, okay, I want to know what that guy's thinking right now. You choose to know, and you're just like, oh, like I know sometimes, like my mind is horrible.
Yeah.
like I don't want to peek into other people's brains, and
Well, in business though, you would never get cheated because you could tell if the other person's thinking, sign it.
yeah,
That's true.
that's true.
And
But I
you
guess
could,
I'm not a business.
you could also trick people way easier, like find the dopes to get you to
if you're like
sign
a
your
con
business
man or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you want that? You're just saying how a villain could use it,
villain.
Yeah, I'm just saying how it can be like.
but how would a superhero
utilized.
use it?
Okay.
Well, if you're a Christian superhero, you could think, I know you really are hurting with this right now.
You can
How
find.
did you know?
That's true.
You'd be the best counselor the world's ever seen.
Oh,
You could find the people of peace. You would be able to read the heart. You would be able to do what God does.
Well,
Oh.
telepathy is reading their mind. Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's a dangerous statement you made, but but it is what it is. I think I would never want to be a telepath. I just couldn't do it.
I think it'd be
I don't
too
want to
much.
know what people are thinking. Even if I could control it and be like, I just want to know what he's thinking right now, I feel like it would slowly drive me mad. Because like it's one of those, like some powers, you start using them and then they just become you, kind of like we talked about with Dune.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's kind of one of those ones that I feel like the more I use it, the lower into a pit of despair I will fall.
Same with invisibility. If you could, because
And that one,
those two,
invisibility, too
Yeah,
creepy.
Too creepy.
Also, like, how useful is it really? You know, I think there are probably some people that, for even reasons that aren't creepy, would like to be invisible. Like they just socially, like they don't want to. Like it's hard for them to be in social situations, so they'd like, oh, I'd love to just turn invisible right now. And no one
Captain
see me.
Introvert. Yes.
Captain Introvert.
Captain Introvert.
Yes. Yeah, that's what the invincible. It's like it's not invincible. It's introvert. You can just turn invisible.
But some powers, they're so obvious. Like if you had super strength, you couldn't really use it without being noticed.
Yeah,
at
that's
some point.
That's
Yeah.
the other thing. Like, if you're a superhero in a modern city, like you would have to go to all of these great lengths to hide the fact that you can do any of that. But like with a wizard, I feel like you would be able to get away with way more things because like there's not social media. Like you don't have to worry about like CCTVs everywhere.
But you're always like on the road. They're always moving from town to town because they'll probably outcast you, or they'll be like, "Oh, we need you so much."
I
I'm
mean,
like,
depending
I can't
on
be used
fantasy
this way.
setting.
So you
Yeah.
have to walk away. Depends on
Depending
fantasy
on the
setting.
setting.
But
If they fear magic or not.
yeah, exactly.
But also, you just find that one king that needs you, and then you just get put up in a nice place, get to
Yeah.
do all your wizarding
You get
experiments.
to-
Or
You
you
get-
get abused and then have to do his dirty work for him, and he just takes advantage of you.
Or you have to sacrifice yourself on a bridge against a Balrog so that everybody else can save the world.
But
And then you get to come
And then
back.
you come back even more powerful.
Then you
know?
come back more powerful, and you get a better color.
Yeah. You're white instead of gray.
Exactly. You've been purified.
Yeah. You've been purified by the Balrog. There's a great analogy for, like, you know, when people say, you know, I've been purified by the fire, or like you go through trials.
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah,
start
yeah.
saying I've been purified by, or I just faced a Balrog, guys.
I just faced
It was
a
like,
Balrog.
you know, when they're like, you know, that really Christianese, like, I just went through a season of hardship.
Yeah, yeah.
I think a better one is,
I faced the Balrog.
I just fell off a bridge with a Balrog. But
Just
you
went
know
through a
what?
season of Balrogs.
A season of Balrogs.
Season of Balrog.
Sounds
But-
like a medical condition.
It does.
Excuse me, my
Balrogs.
Balrog is acting up.
The Balrogs on my back are flaring up. No, it's. But when does he come back? It's in the second one, right? What's the battle that he comes back?
They find him
In the
and
woods.
They find him in the
Yeah,
woods.
he
Okay,
saves
never mind.
Merry and Pippin, and
yeah.
then like
But the battle is, there's a big battle, right? That he comes back, and it's like a triumphal entry.
Helm's
I mean,
Deep.
Is it Helm's Deep?
Yeah,
No,
it's
Helm's
during
Deep.
Helm's
Helm's
Deep
Deep.
when he goes and gets the rest of the Rohirrim, but
But
like
they already-
by that point they've already known that he's back.
Yeah, he's already been Gandalf the White for
the way that
a period
the
of
way
long
that the main people besides Merry and Pippin, which find out off screen, is when they're in the woods, they're looking for the White Wizard.
Yeah.
and then they're like, "Be careful!" And then they turn around and they all like, "Brah!" But then it's just, and then
Yeah.
he's just like, "It's me!" And then
It's
they're
the
just
battle
like-
at the tower is the first thing when he comes back.
Oh. I think because in what you're
With the
talking about,
Ents.
I'm just talking about in the movie.
Yeah, in the movie, what you're talking about, they kind of pitch it as though you're supposed to think for a second it's Saruman.
That it is Saruman.
That's the point,
making his wanderings through the woods.
The Ents take the tower from Saruman
before Helm's Deep.
because the battle for the
They
Because
do that.
because they all leave to go to Helm's Deep. All the Uruk-hai go to Helm's Deep to take on the men, and then they go take on the men. The men have to fight that.
It's during.
it's
I think it's like
time.
same time.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's around the same time.
The only reason I asked is I was just going to try and complete the analogy of our
Yeah, yeah,
stupid
yeah.
season.
That
thing. I was
you
just saying,
come back.
I
No,
went
we're
through a
getting
season of
way too
Balrog,
deep.
and now I'm in a season of, and then I was going to say
and now
the
I'm
other
in
thing.
the season of wandering through the woods.
But that doesn't work, so forget it. It's done. I'm choosing Wizard in a Fantasyland, especially if I get to choose which, and I'll probably choose the land of Aragon, so Allegasia, or
now. Do you like Aragon?
a lot. Yeah, it's my favorite series. It's very good. I got to read some of it again last night. Finally, Perry and I are like halfway through the first book, which is great.
nice.
Someday
You'll finish it.
I'll get to read Murtagh.
Okay. I am picking medieval fantasy wizard, but I'm gonna ask a caveat, and this is only for Jerry because the other two at the table haven't read the book yet.
Ah, yes.
Does the Stormlight Archive count as fantasy,
yeah.
and
Oh,
does that count as magic?
Yeah, it's Investiture's totally magic.
Okay,
It's
so
his
then-
magic system.
So then I'm gonna totally do it that way
Yeah, I thought about that.
because that's
That magic system's really cool. But like, are you counting?
I'm thinking.
Are you
more-
counting Knights Radiant as wizards?
I'm counting Knights Radiant as wizards.
Okay.
because
Then if
because
that's
there's no
a wizard, I'm choosing that too.
because there's no other because I don't know of any other wizards in that series that are.
I do.
Oh, okay. Haven't read that book yet.
Yeah.
I'm still reading.
You'll learn. There are some that you could
like-
probably call wizards.
Because like there's a soul casting groups
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Okay, then which? Which?
Oh, I don't know what order. I only know
Windrunner,
of,
dude. Windrunner.
I-
Sorry, guys.
I know of Windrunner, and I know of oh shoot, what is
Shalon.
Shalon is
Yeah.
one, and then we're spoilers.
There's a big one that we've seen like none of called Dustbringers that you'll see later.
Okay.
They would be Levi's favorite.
Probably.
Oh yeah. The Dustbringers in the
I mean, it sounds cool.
It sounds like Dune.
their symbol looks like that thing that the flag that your mom made. You know, it's kind of similar to that. But all right, for those that have read the Stormlight Archive, you know what we're talking about. If that counts as a wizard, then I'm not choosing Aragon. I'm gonna be a Windrunner from those. Way cooler. They can fly, but they don't fly. They change the direction of gravity for themselves. That's how they fly. So they do this thing called lashings, where like
yes.
they like lash the sky and they make it so that they're technically falling upward now, and then they'll like make small lashings in different directions so they're actually flying.
I had a dream that I did that.
The reason for that, Brandon Sanderson has said, is because he's like, I think flight is such a cool ability, like in magic systems and in superhero stuff and all that. He's like, but it's too cheap. He's like, I had to make it technical. So it's really flight, but I had to make it technical.
I love that he went technical on it.
I saw an interview with Brandon Sanderson where he was like, it was obviously he was probably talking about like some of his own novels as well. But he's like, yeah, when Phantom Menace came out and Darth Maul used the Force,
Yes.
he pushed something and then sent it that way. And he's like, but where was like the axis of momentum on that? Like, was there like, was he the, And he just,
because
like, went
usually
super technical.
the Force is like
Because
push-pull.
The Force had always been push-pull, but then you also get like Yoda raising up the...
Yeah. But in that, it's distinct, like where Darth Maul
But
does,
it's like-
and it goes... Yeah, it's interesting. That's how a lot of his magic system
And then he was just like, I've got to make a actual way of doing that.
Okay, good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer. I'll stick with mine though. That way we're different. I think because I'm pretty 50-50 on it. I'll be a writer from the Aragon series. I get a dragon.
That's pretty dope.
That's so much.
That's pretty dope. No, I'd probably choose wizard in a medieval fantasy. Like, I mean, just of course,
We all
just
play
like,
D&D. Like, why would we choose the other one?
honestly, basically any of them are pretty good.
Yeah.
Like,
Fair.
so I'm just going like generic because
So like D&D wizard.
Sure,
Pretty
yeah,
generic.
yeah.
Okay, well then if it's D&D wizard, then you do get a school of magic. Which one are you going?
oh shoot,
What?
Hi.
Did you just think of an answer?
No. Oh, no. I was thinking of an answer for him.
What are you doing? Boss?
Oh, I'm a superhero in Modern City with telekinesis or telepathy and telekinesis.
The two. So like Professor X, right? Does he get both?
Yes.
yeah, Xavier, yeah.
Or Jean Grey.
Jean Grey gets it way better.
She's better, right?
Yeah, except for the
Instead
insanity.
of Phoenix, though, I'd want to be something more manly, like,
Vulture.
Otter.
Otter.
The Otter Saga.
The otter.
Yeah,
saga.
way more manly than a phoenix.
See,
And powerful.
see,
What is your spirit? An otter.
An otter.
the one thing I thought about, and this is kind of off topic, but kind of the same thing. If you're into medieval fantasy, you have to poop in a hole in the ground. And
So,
if you're in
yeah.
the city, you actually have like
But the
running
thing
water
is,
and toilet.
but being a wizard,
Nice.
you have like the ability to magically
Vaporize it.
clean things. You know.
That's true.
Magic bidet.
yeah, you can magically like.
The feather of cleanliness.
Okay, cool. Well, there's your answer. That went a little longer than I expected
Yeah.
for such a simple hypothetical. But we're each pretty much picking wizards, except for our boss. He's going.
Yeah.
Ottoman.
So we've been like talking a little bit about books. What's like your favorite series of books or anything?
So glad you asked. So I grew up in the South, and I was an only child. So I didn't have cousins to date or anything. So I read a lot. So
For those listening that are from the South.
We're sorry.
I'm from Georgia. So
Oh, Jude moved to Georgia.
yes, he did. He's actually living on the family farm, my family farm.
Because you were his boss, too.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Jude worked for me, and now it's relabeled as the Retired Podcast Retirement Center.
Yeah. You know when like you send a dog off to the farm out of state?
No, we
When-
said
when a-
Jude.
when a
I'll
host-
send your dog with Jude.
True. Poor guys had how many?
2.
He's had to kill 2 dogs since he moved there.
He's had to humanely
What?
Yes. Put 2 dogs
When
down.
bring them to the end of their painful life.
Why?
Well, one of them had a painful life.
One of them was a young puppy that was in pain and dying.
Oh,
And the other one had attacked other animals and was going very feral.
Out in farm country.
Were these pets that he was taking in, or were these just like dogs roaming around? Like,
One of them was a stray
One
that
of
they,
them
took in.
Right,
And
trying
then
to rehabilitate. It had some
And then
issues.
it attacked some other animals.
oh, okay.
Yeah. And then they had 2
the
dogs,
yeah. Had puppies,
Rowdy
right?
and Piper,
Okay.
which is named after, they're named after a wrestling star if you're that old.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, Roddy.
I don't.
Roddy Piper was his name. And so now they have these 2 Australian sheepdogs,
Okay.
and they had pups, and one of them was in pain, dying.
So don't send your dogs to Jude.
Yeah.
is what
No.
you're saying.
No dogs to
The
Jude.
point about what I was saying is like when you send a dog, when they say you send a dog off, like you were saying.
Yeah, to the farm. You know?
The equivalent of that for this podcast is the farm in Georgia, is what we're saying. So Jude has been retired,
yeah.
sent away.
Yeah. Or if like your kid like has an animal that like you have to put down for whatever
Just
reason.
send it to Jude.
We do
no,
not
no,
offer those
he's-
services.
no. You can tell them that he's just gone off to where Jude is.
to
you
the
know?
under the influence farm.
to the under the influence.
He's
farm.
gone off to spend time with Jude. No, Jude's not dead. You were saying you grew up in the South.
I grew up in the South, so I like to read,
cousins.
and I had teachers who noticed that out of the class that I enjoyed reading, so they would bring me vast amounts of books from different authors. Terry Brooks, for you if you're old, and the Sword of Shannara series, that really was a great series for me.
I met him.
Yes,
Wait.
You met-
Who wrote the Sword of Shannara?
Terry Brooks.
Terry Brooks did?
Yeah.
Okay. I just started that book. I accidentally grabbed the wrong book. I grabbed the last book in the series.
Oh,
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. And I was like, this is really good, but I don't understand anything that's going
Well,
on.
at least you know it gets good.
And then I was like,
At least you know it gets good.
and I Googled it and I'm like, oh, I'm on book 40.
which one did you start?
There's 40?
There's more than 40.
It was more than 40. It was.
It's not all in the Sword of Shannara.
No.
Most of them are set in the land of Shannara.
Yeah. There was the Shadow. Oh shoot, I'm not gonna get the name. It's the last trilogy, and the first book of the trilogy. So whatever
Yeah,
that is.
I mean,
Shadow
that's
something.
past what you read, I'm assuming. Right?
It
Yeah,
was
I've read almost everything except for the last probably 10 years
okay. Yeah,
because
this was,
he's still cranking.
This was I think published 1819, and I was
In
like,
1819?
or no,
In
no,
1819, yeah.
18 or
Yeah,
19.
he's been writing for a long
2019.
time.
He's
He's
sorry.
140 years old.
Yes.
I was like, I'm pretty sure I met that guy.
But
Looked good, didn't he?
Yeah. He
I saw-
looked old, but not that old.
No, I think that he ran
Sorry,
for
Terry
president.
Brooks.
you're good.
You what?
You know,
he ran for president?
That 140-year-old guy. Never mind. Continue.
Are you making a Biden
I was
joke?
making a
He's
old
making a
man Biden joke.
bad Biden joke?
A terrible Biden joke.
But I started that one and I was like, this is great. And I don't understand. So I went back to the first one, read the first one for like the first little bit. And then immediately Jerry was like, you need to read this book. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, so it was Shannara that you were reading when I recommended the other ones?
I was reading Shannara.
The Sword of Shannara was it got me into science fiction fantasy.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I hear if you're a fan of that book series, the show's really good.
No.
Just kidding.
No. No.
It's terrible.
It's very woke compared
Yeah.
to the books. But so there are certain books that he's written over the years. The Sword of Shannara being one of them. Another being Magic Castle for Sale Sold.
Oh, that was him. I've read that one.
Yeah.
Magic Kingdom for Sale Sold.
Magic Kingdom for Sale
That
Sold.
one is a fun kind of like one and done fantasy book. That's good.
Yeah, there's 9 in that series.
Oh well, I only read it for
It's not a one and done.
I
apparently.
thought it was a one and done.
And then there's one called Night of the Word, which is a predecessor. He writes a series of books about a post-apocalyptic Earth where magic is now resurfaced. And then he goes back and writes the prehistory to that. And it starts with Night of the Word.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
And I really liked it. And then I got into another author named Piers Anthony, which you
Piers
guys...
Anthony is what you were reading because I remember
I
you
was-
showing.
yeah.
me.
I don't
I was
necessarily
reading them.
push Piers Anthony on people to read
No.
because he got into the very adult.
That's a very eclectic.
Yes.
I was on book 3 of the oh shoot, the
Land of Xanth.
The Land of Xanth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
read reading book 3, and I'm
Like,
like, this is a
each
little
one-
bit.
Spell for Chameleon is the first book. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then,
it
Hunt for
just
Magic.
gets wild and like
That
I
gets-
just
It's very 80s fantasy, right? A lot of that was like
Well,
70s, 80s.
I mean, like in Xanth, you had he did a lot of topical humor, like a bed bug.
Yeah.
Literally
Yeah.
was a mattress that would try to eat you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like his house was a cheese house, and he actually ate his house.
yeah,
He'd eat
you
the
have
house
to you have
out.
to eat the inside of your house to get it, and then you stop eating it so that it hardens,
Yeah.
and then you can go inside and live in it.
And when you want to find shoes, you go to the shoe tree, and you find you find shoes that are the right ripeness.
Did Piers Anthony do drugs, do you think?
Yes.
Okay,
100%.
probably.
But it was strictly for research purposes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then
There were like cool ideas from it, but
So you're not recommending those
but
ones.
it's
No,
not.
But you're
really,
just
no.
saying you're building a history here, right? So you read a lot of
Yeah.
this sort of.
Then I got
growing
into
up.
more of the like Jack London historical, about like the Gold Rush.
Okay.
Other things. Stephen King. Not necessarily going recommend in that direction.
Lee Child. You really like
Now,
him.
so
right?
as an older adult now, I read all of the Lee Child up until the point where he retired and turned the series over to his brother.
That's the Jack Reacher series,
That is
right?
Jack Reacher, which now they have the series on Amazon. Season 3 coming out soon. No, I'm just kidding. But
It's not actually coming out.
Well, it actually is.
I think.
I know.
And they actually found someone bigger than him as the bad guy.
Really?
Well, I mean, it's
He's
not
got
like
almost 7 foot tall, 300-pound hitman.
because the guy that in that show is
6'5".
What's his name in real life?
Alan Richardson.
Alan Rich. Yeah,
He's a
Richardson
big
or whatever.
man.
He's a big dude.
That's a big guy.
Yeah, it's a big guy.
He doesn't use steroids.
No,
but he's
no,
a
he
big,
does.
No, he does.
Strictly for research purposes.
Yeah.
Strictly for research.
So, but then in my
reacher
older years now, in my
purposes. For
golden
reach.
years, I've really gone with Patrick Rothfuss. Name of the Wind, A Wise Man's Fear. He's quickly about to finish his third book. He's been working on it for 15 years.
yeah.
And he'll admit that he's not working very hard on it. But if I were to blend all the books I've read in the science fiction fantasy world, it would be Patrick Rothfuss coming through. I like his system of magic.
It is cool.
With Sigildry and the different ways he does things. And when he writes, really, I mean, very rarely now do I read a book that gets me to cry. Mm-hmm. And reading, the main character in this book goes through some horrible situations when he's 12, winds up losing all of his friends and family in one incident. And then Patrick Rothfuss writes the story of how this kid blocks it in his mind in order to preserve his mind and goes and lives in the forest by himself for 6 months.
Isn't it
And-
longer than that?
It's 6 months, and then he goes and lives in Tarbean for 3 years.
Yeah.
So
The way he writes that loneliness, though, the kind of cabin fever, like like kind of Mowgli from the Jungle Book kind of scene that feels like a long time. It's really, really good. Like,
well, he's playing a lute. He's playing his
Yeah.
father's lute, and as he's playing, I mean, his fingers are bleeding till they
Yeah.
develop calluses because music is the only thing keeping him sane.
Yeah.
The strings are breaking over time, and he gets down to one string until it breaks,
And then
he
that's
knows
like
he has to
what
go
he
find strings.
but that it like breaks. Yeah. It's really good. Like Patrick Rothfuss writes tragedy probably better than any modern fantasy that I've ever read. Modern fiction that I've read. Like the way he writes it, it's very personable, and you feel it. Some books like you're like, man, he really wrote that. Like that's really good. Like I like Brandon Sanderson a lot. He writes tragic characters really well. Also, like one of the main characters from that series we were talking about earlier, very tragic history. But Rothfuss fills it with so much more emotion.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's really good. I mean, yeah, such a good series. And he'll write the third book someday.
Someday, I mean, I'm re-listening to the books for probably the 15th time.
Yeah.
I
They're
can
really
just keep
good.
doing it because, and I pick out little things that I haven't heard or realized before. Something clicks, and I'm thinking, now I understand this, and maybe he'll bring that out in the third book before
Yeah.
I die.
if he ever writes. No, you said he like isn't working on it very hard. He's talked about that. I think I watched some stuff where he's talked about trying to write that third book, and I guess he suffers a lot from depression and some other things that have made it really hard for him to like work on it. But but it's also kind of like
And if he were to fit in everything that his fans
Yeah.
are wanting in that third book, it's going to turn into 5 books.
Yeah.
And we're hoping he'll finish it before he hits 100.
yeah. I mean,
So-
I think part of the problem is, and this is an interesting topic in general, I think, but something that it's easy for me to struggle with sometimes, and some people it's harder than others, but like trying to please people, like when there are expectations to be met, right? When people have expectations of you, and for him, there's a lot of expectation, right? He's finishing a trilogy, and I think we can all relate in some ways to like when you either feel or know that there are expectations of you, and you want to try and meet them or exceed them. And so what he's talked a lot about with writing that book is like, man, I know that people expect greatness. I know that people expect me to do this, great job and finish this series and everything. And he said he's basically finished the book multiple times, but then scrapped it and started over because he's like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. Like that kind of imposter syndrome thing. And then I think because he struggles with depression too, just like he gets really in his head about that kind of thing, which is sad. I'd be curious to see what, like, man, he said, I think he's done it twice where he's written it and scrapped it or something. I don't know how many times, but I wonder how different those books are.
Well, then I'm wondering if he'll pull a Douglas Adams. And if you're not familiar, Douglas Adams, British author, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always love about him is that he wrote a trilogy in 4 books.
Oh, he just
Yeah.
split the last one into 2 or what?
No, he just says in my trilogy there are 4 books. So literally, there's just 4 books in his trilogy.
Oh,
It
'cause he's
doesn't
just
make
being-
sense. He's being
It's just like memeing, like just making a joke.
So
Okay,
I keep thinking Patrick Rothfuss is going to finish his
Yeah.
trilogy with 5 books.
Probably.
Was it designed to be a trilogy when he started out?
Douglas Adams?
No, it was always going to be
Rothfuss.
Rothfuss. Yes,
Okay.
That's what he said.
that's what he said. But he's going to have to go
He
more.
also, since that second book, he's also had some kids. That's been a big thing in his life.
Okay.
He had some children, and like they've been a big part of his life, obviously, but he's like I think that first distracted him a lot, and then now he's been like saying like I'm trying to write for them, but then it's been making it difficult, and like there's just some interviews where he's been like, I want to be a good father and spend time with my kids, So.
Yeah.
And like he's got to be like a different person now,
Yeah.
than when he
Probably.
first started writing the books.
Kids, man.
Kids. Jerry,
Yes.
do you have any kids?
Currently in this state, I have 5.
You have 5 in this
In this
state?
state.
In this
So-
state?
So if we count all your kids outside of this state,
I have 5.
Oh, in
Okay,
this
just wanted to
state.
check.
I was thinking in this state, like
I
this
was
state
thinking-
of being. I was like, what does that mean? But you were
It's just
saying
a running-
Oregon.
It's a running joke when people say, "How many children do you have?" I say, "Well, in Oregon, I have 5."
Yeah.
But
And in the whole world.
I have 5.
Okay.
but you
I always tell people I have 9.
what?
What? Spit it out.
nothing. Continue.
My math is not working in my head.
Maybe enough of the joke.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, and I'm sure many of you do, this is my dad, Jerry Crane,
The reveal.
the second. I'm the third. Boom. Ooh. And this is a special Father's Day episode. We can spit it out. I mean, when you're
Congratulations.
seeing it, it might be
seeing
way
it,
later.
it's way later.
Or maybe we'll just release this one this week. We'll just rush this one.
We could rush it.
It's not. The show's not serious.
And I have an announcement. You guys don't know this. I'm going to be a dad again. Just kidding.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Well,
Like, how?
kind of. You're going to be a grandfather
I'm going to be a grandfather
for the first time.
Yes.
Pretty soon. We're like, ooh, 3 months away.
Little Reginald
Yeah, little Reginald. That's what we're naming him. Reginald.
von Peterschmidt.
Oh, we're getting rid of Crane. We're going just for him though.
That's the middle
No,
name.
it's Von Peter Schmidt Crane.
No, not Peter. Peter.
Peterschmidt.
Von Peter Schmidt.
Von
Crane.
Peter Schmidt.
Crane.
Man, that's a good one.
That's gonna be a kid's name.
Put that one on your
Reginald
kid.
von Peter
Have him
Schmidt.
sign that in preschool.
Reginald.
I'm writing that down. I'm going to use that
Crane.
in D&D. That's such a great, funny D&D NPC name. Reginald von Peter Schmidt.
Why do I feel like he'd be a pompous person?
That's exactly
100%.
it. Peter.
100%.
Oh, I accidentally misspelled it with a V, but it's better. It's better with a V. Von Peter Schmidt. Schmidt. No, it doesn't work. Yeah, so he is a parent. He's my parent. My
And
dad.
Jude's.
And Jude's.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jude and I are brothers.
That's what
You
I was
know-
saying,
you know
like
that.
5 in the state.
That's what I was trying to figure out the 5 in the state.
Because he's in
Oh.
Georgia.
Yeah.
So you
You
can't
got
say
4 in
5.
the
You got
state.
4 in the
Well,
state.
well,
Well, he
5
had
overall.
5.
I had 5.
Like
But
we were all born here.
Yeah.
But then if we go to the state of being, then you're definitely right.
Yeah. So that's
Five
what he
in
meant.
this
That's
state
what he
of
meant.
If it's a mental state, I've got lots of kids.
What does that mean?
Probably true.
Well, I've always, so over the years, for those of you who don't know, I'm a caterer under Fat Food Guy. And I'm sorry, that food guy. And yes, all these fine gentlemen here at this table have worked for me in the past. And when emergencies happen, maybe in the future. And
Every now and then.
every now and then. But where was I going? Who am I? I'm sorry, I pulled a Biden. So
Ice cream truck.
ice cream. It's been a interesting life as a caterer, and I don't know why we even went. To
Because of your kids.
You were saying
your
kids,
state of mind.
your
like
mental state of mind.
mental
How many
state.
kids you have?
I've had lots of employees over the years, and some of them I've become fond of, and even refer to them as my kids, Byron and Levi included.
Yeah.
So it's fun at a catering when people say, "Are these all your kids?" Yes, and there will be like 4 very different looking people working that catering.
Yes.
And it's just like, yes. And they're all from different moms.
Yeah, because like David, who does a lot of caterings with you, like one of his parents is like Puerto Rican, I'm pretty sure. And so when you go like, yes, he's my son, people are like, they look at him and look at you. It's like,
And I always go, it's an interesting story.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
And they're like, do tell. No.
I'd rather not.
No.
Or Jarrett, who we
Jarrett,
will have on the show at some point, and Jarrett is like full red hair. Well, so is Byron. Full red hair, like doesn't look like you at all.
Yeah.
And I guess with Byron, there was some of that too. People would be like, really?
Yeah.
You would always introduce me to like one of your kids, and they'd be like, "Huh?" And you'd be like, "We call him FedEx."
Have you seen Cheaper by the Dozen? Yeah, Cheaper by the Dozen.
So for those of you thinking about child labor laws, when I said I employ 10 and 11-year-olds,
That's why.
it was because they were my kids, and that's legal.
Though they were actually like that was not them. It was just me because I'm actually.
Yeah, I wasn't like when I started working. It was like
16,
no,
15.
Probably 15.
Freshman year.
I was 14. I'm pretty sure.
No, I don't think so.
Because-
It was
no
after
way.
your freshman year when you that first summer and you
No,
it was
it's because
during
it-
you
because-
turned 15
because I turned 15.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Because
So
in
started-
July.
like it was like I could only do so much.
So you
Like
lied on
that.
your
during it.
paperwork.
No, he was only able to. Remember, he was only allowed to like. He wasn't able to be near fryers
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah,
But he
there
could
was-
run with scissors. Yes, I
He could run
Yeah.
this
Yes.
up and down the
Yeah.
stairs with scissors.
They've been
That's actually
allowing-
all we had Levi do at the ballpark.
I just had to run scissors everywhere.
Well, there's often needs
We only
for
had
coupon
two-
cutting upstairs.
We
and
only
then
had
downstairs.
2 pairs of scissors for the whole ballpark, and you've got to keep opening hot dog packets.
That and they need somebody to cut the tickets with at the front. So you'd be like,
so
hey, I've
I've-
got a hot dog packet up here, and then they've got a big line. They got to cut those tickets.
Yeah.
Go down there, Levi.
Up and downstairs, it was a little sketchy at times. Having to jump over the rail to go really quick.
What a hilarious fictional universe where it's like we've only got 2 pairs of scissors, Levi. You got to run these up and down stairs all the time. Honestly,
But if we had 2, could we leave one upstairs
Yes,
in the kitchen?
yeah.
And one
So we
no,
have
but
one.
there's 4 places that need them.
4 places. Yeah,
okay.
2 downstairs, 2
Yeah.
upstairs. What an absurd thing! But isn't that far into absurdity for some of the things that happen?
No,
Some
not
of the
at
things
all.
at that ballpark.
Not at
man.
all.
Oh my
goodness!
Yeah.
So in our catering business over the years, all 3 of these fine gentlemen worked at the same time at a ballpark doing food service.
Mm-hmm.
And we had many adventures, some 24 to 36 hours long, where we actually slept at the ballpark.
Yeah.
We've mentioned it on the podcast before that we've all worked at a local ballpark.
Yeah.
And how when we look back on it, we're like, man, pretty fun. Like I do look back on it fondly, but at the time there were a lot of things that were just like really difficult.
There were a lot of struggles with that place.
Like one of the big things, like because we stopped doing it after I think 2017, right? But we really went out with a bang. Like 2017 was the year
eclipse.
of the eclipse, and we had this huge event, and that's what he's mainly referencing, I think, with the 36-hour thing where we slept there, because like we worked basically an entire day the day before, and then worked part of the night preparing a huge breakfast for all the people that were going to be there, because the eclipse was in the morning, and the ballpark was doing a special game where they were going to interrupt the game to watch the eclipse in the morning, and this whole thing.
Total eclipse of the park.
Yes.
Yeah.
Total eclipse of my heart. And I mean, that was the play on words, right?
Yes.
The total
Yeah.
eclipse of the park. Yeah.
We were the
And
first baseball game in history to be paused for an eclipse.
yeah. Is it a Guinness thing or no?
it-
It's not a Guinness World
They
Record.
haven't applied for it, but technically, as far as we could tell, we were the first ballpark in the United States ever paused.
And
For an
are we?
eclipse.
Are they still the only?
I would imagine.
Because
Well,
there was
another one.
There was another eclipse that
I'm
just
sure
happened.
some other places have taken.
So I don't know if they got
advantage
it.
of
because it got national news. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we saw it on some news programs and stuff.
We're on CNN and The Onion.
No, same thing.
The MLB still uses the clip from the eclipse on their commercials, and I'm like, that's weird.
From the Volcano Stadium.
Volcanoes,
Oh,
yeah.
that's cool.
They're using
wild.
volcanoes as like major. They're using it as the major league.
Wait,
it was
where?
still major league. It was a it was a commercial I saw on TV. They're talking about like
Whoa.
baseball. Look at this. We do all this crazy stuff. Eclipse even.
Whoa,
and then
that's
they went
cool.
back and they did all
It's interesting considering that we're not MLB affiliated anymore. That
because
stadium.
you were
At the
time,
So
so,
they can use
technically
it.
can still use it.
Yeah, we had NASA on site, and they said
Yeah,
it was
we
a
did. That was
wonderful
cool.
event.
Yeah, that was fun. The baseball stadium was fun. So for those that don't know, it's a local stadium or a local team called the Salem Kaiser Volcanoes. They used to be affiliated with the Giants. They were one of the farm teams for the Giants, and actually a lot of World Series champions on the Giants team, for the last 10 years or whatever, all came from that not all of them, but a lot of them did. Like Buster Posey,
Pablo.
right? Or was Buster Posey in there? Yeah, and Tim Lincecum, like those
Pablo
guys.
Sandoval.
I'm pretty sure Buster Posey was on the Giants, right?
Yeah,
Did he make it?
I believe so.
I don't know. I don't follow it closely.
Who was it that literally came in for 2 innings, pitched
I don't
pitched
remember.
pitched 9 balls, drove in the bus, pitched 2 innings, and then left in a bus.
He was a high
to like
recruit.
go up, or
Yeah,
he got
to go up.
Probably some Dominican.
He had to
like-
play a game.
It was a Dominican.
He had to play a game for so many innings
Oh yeah,
at a minor league of this level.
'Cause
And
they
so
had already-
literally drove him in,
they
dropped him
basically
off,
already
left.
picked him and wanted him, and
Yeah.
so that he had to meet the
Yeah,
requirements.
that's
I
wild.
guarantee you he was Dominican.
Yeah, we all knew because the average signing bonus for a single A player is
Yeah.
$5,000-$10,000. This guy got a $250,000 signing bonus. Yeah, so
It
we
was-
knew he would not be around. long.
Yeah. But no, those were fun days. I mean, I had fun, even though it was hard. Like, I look back, that type of work is fun, even though it's high stress. Working in a ballpark was cool,
It was fun working with like the people that you knew and
Yeah.
like got to like
yeah.
meet people and build like relationships with the people around you because you're all like struggling through
That's true.
certain things together.
I just saw Bryce yesterday, who's been on the podcast.
Yeah.
But Bryce, who worked with us at the ballpark, that's how we know him. I just saw him yesterday, and he was like, dude, we got to get the gang back together. Like, go bowling or something with all the ballpark people or something like that.
Paintball.
Or paintball. Yeah, dude. We went
Paintball
paintballing
was
one time as like, it was the food crew versus the stadium crew. And I don't remember how that game went, but
Yeah, I do.
did we lose?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, who were on the? Wasn't there like a really good player, like several, like,
Probably.
full,
Like real sporty
real
people.
sporty
you
people,
know?
but
That's,
also like people that actually go play paintball and have the good guns.
I
and
think
everything.
so.
And some very devious people, but I won't name names.
Dude, I haven't played paintball for a while. That'd be
I
fun.
haven't played in a long time.
I mean, Orbeez. We did that Orbeez battle for youth group.
battle. That was fun.
That was fun. Orbeez is just like less painful paintball,
Yeah.
kind of. But yeah, so he's my dad. But you are a parent. How has being a parent changed you?
Well, it will. To me, a good parent becomes someone who's willing to sacrifice, because there is nothing that you want to do more than protect your children from pain or hurt or any type of anything that just hurts them, And as I thought about this question, as I looked at it, and over the years, as a parent, you start realizing what things or actions you do that might cause your own kids pain. And you're like, I can give that up. I don't need to do that, because in the long run, so what? If it means giving up a certain type of food or beverage, but it helps your kids, you'll do it. I don't feed my kids pure lard anymore just because it's not good for them health-wise.
That was a rough few years.
It was.
He was that lard fad. Everybody remembers that, right?
Well, it was Costco's fault when they started selling the 50-gallon.
Yeah. They're like,
tubs
hey,
of lard.
just feed your kids lard and nothing else.
But it tastes good.
Good
But no,
calorie count.
Yuck.
You look back and you think, man, I can't believe my kids lived through that or had to go through that. But then I firmly believe I have 5 wonderful children. and I wouldn't trade them for the world. And if I had to go through everything I went through just to get those kids, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Hopefully with less mistakes. But if I was told I had to go through all those mistakes again, I'd do it, because you just can't put a price on it. And as I've watched them and my extracurricular children grow, I couldn't be more proud. They've turned into fine young men and women, and to carry on tradition, my youngest child, who's 13, worked an event.
Yeah.
Just a week and a half ago, 300 people, real dishes. She was out there bussing tables, taking dishes. And what happened? She carried on your tradition.
Oh, she put it on her head?
People were handing her money.
Dude, yeah.
And we got nothing. And they're going, look at that young lady just worked.
Yeah.
She's petite. She looks younger than she is.
Yeah.
She does.
So she's out here, bussing these tables, just moving out. I mean, I was proud.
Yeah.
But then people are going,
Jenna rocks.
Young lady. And she comes back in, she goes, Dad, this guy handed me a 20, and then another guy at the table handed me a 5, and then another guy handed me a stack of $2 bills. Because they're like, wow, you're a hard worker. And I looked at her and I said, pretend you're younger.
Yeah.
You'll rake it in. And we've had other events where she's been the cashier.
Yeah,
And the
the
tips
Susie-
just pile in.
Whenever we would do a Susie Q's kettle corn show, and she would be there, or Joel would be there, I would always be like Joel, it would bother him sometimes. He'd be like, man, they keep calling me a little kid, and I'm 14. I was like, dude, I know it kind of hurts your feelings, but honestly, milk it. Because they think you're 9.
Yeah.
They're like, wow, you are a hard worker for 9, and then they give you tips.
Here's an extra $10. Thank you, sir.
No, don't lie to them. But often
That's
people,
more than I am old.
like, there'd be times where someone that's one more dollar than I am old. But no, like with Jenna especially, we would make Jenna the cashier because it was the best job for her, but also people would just be so impressed by her.
Yeah.
And they just thought it was great.
And it also helps with like anybody that's like angry. you know? If
it's
they're-
harder for people to be angry, like
Yeah.
if things are taking longer than they want them to.
Yeah, if there's like a child at the register,
And
that's
if
a good
they'll
point.
yell at a kid, I already know how I'm going to deal with them.
That's true.
Yeah.
It would happen less, but then when it would happen, it's like these are the people that
These
have to
are-
be dealt with, kind of.
Yeah, you are gonna have to deal
Like,
with them.
you
but,
know
like,
what? We
this
don't want
is-
your money. You can go.
Yeah.
But it's been a wonderful. To be a parent is a huge responsibility. I can tell you that you'll never be fully ready, but if you rely on God, He'll give you grace. And children are very forgiving, and they bounce.
I've only been dropped a few times that I know of.
Good story though. When Jerry was little, I mean, in the infant seat,
Yeah.
little, I had a truck, and I had been doing construction, and the truck bed might have been full of boards with nails in it.
You know, like a bed of nails.
And I set Jerry on the side, the edge of the bed of the truck to unlock my door, and he flipped over into the back in his stroller, or no, his car seat, and the bar of the car seat just kept him perfectly spaced.
I was Mission Impossible, suspended over
He
nails.
didn't even wake up.
Yeah.
And then, his mom and I were just freaking out, going, "Oh gosh, we killed another one." And just
No,
kidding.
I was the firstborn.
And we flip him back over. He's just asleep, and we put asleep, nice and peaceful. And we put him in the truck. We're okay. And we're looking at each other like, we will never tell anyone.
You just told the
And
world.
then you
just
just
told the
told
world.
the entire world.
I mean, I've made it to 25, so.
So
And you guys are done. Obviously, you don't have any more
I'm not
babies.
having any more.
Yeah.
I physically can't.
Being a parent, you is it something that like before you were a parent, was it harder to sacrifice? Is that what you're saying? And like being a parent, do you think God used that to change your heart, or are you saying that you just found that you did have to sacrifice more?
Yes.
Yes to all. Okay.
So when it's just you, your world really centers around you. And it's, even as a believer, you tend to be more you-centric.
Yeah.
Because when you get up, when you go to bed, when you feed yourself, everything, it's you. But as you have children, then you start realizing, hey, I got to take care and provide for this person. Or when you get married, even you're helping you're in a relationship that you have to take care of other people, or at least help take care. And as I've read some books where a parent will talk about, I fed my children this meal that I prepared, and then I went back to the kitchen and might have had a piece of bread and something,
Yeah.
but my kids didn't know that. And then I'm thinking, why? But when you have children, you'll realize you're going to do everything you can to give them everything they can, you can without spoiling them. And if it means you sacrifice something that would have made you happy in order to make them happy, you'll do it.
Yeah.
Because that's just it. I couldn't imagine a greater love than what a parent has for a child. And then, I start extrapolating that and thinking about the love that Christ has for us
Yeah.
and what he did for us. Would I lay down my life for any of you? If it came to it, I would. I firmly believe that if a gunman came in the door and I had the opportunity, I would step in front. But then I think about, Christ doing it for the entire world. And he didn't have to. And what he went through to do that, and what the Father went through to put his Son through that, it pales. It makes what I think of pale in comparison.
And yeah, an interesting comparison to that is, you said you'd be willing to, to hopefully reflect Christ in sacrificing yourself for your children or those that you consider children. But would you be willing to sacrifice me for people that you don't even know, right? So like that's
a hard one.
That's the comparison to the Father's relationship with Christ, right? Like, and that's something I think about in becoming a father and having a son soon, right? Specifically a son. Like, I think it's really cool. Well, really cool is such an understatement, but like, it's incredible that God gives us the opportunity to, obviously we are called to exemplify him, and he gives us a lot of ways that we should, right? How to live like Christ. And we as you study the word and you come to know him more and be more familiar with his word, you should be understanding better, being sanctified, right? Knowing how to live and are living like him. But then there's these other, like when you consider the things that are good that he says to do, like even going and having children, right? It's these other opportunities that you get to relate to God and understand him, and it's really a gift. Like he's giving us this gift with marriage. Like it's a way to, if done correctly, hopefully further understand the love that God has for us, right? And exemplify it. And like, when you're learning something, sometimes the best way to learn is to do it. Like there's the book knowledge of it, but then experiential learning is so powerful. It's like God saying, like, here, I want you to learn and to know the love I have for you. And here's a way that you can experientially learn it, if done correctly, right? Through marriage. But then also the same is true of having children, I'm assuming, right? I'm not entirely there yet, but like when considering it, it's like the way that he creates, right? Like breathes life. Like you have this opportunity to be in a different way, not the creator, but to create, right? Create life. And that's so cool how God, like he doesn't have to have done it that way. He could have designed it where kids just pop out somewhere of the ground. And then like, if you're standing there, then like, oh, that's your son. But like, no, it is something that is a creation, right? That you get to take part in. And then you are linked to that child, right? In a significant way. So when considering, like you were saying, when considering the act of the Father in giving up his son, like I can't fully comprehend that yet. I'd imagine you have a better idea of how to comprehend that as having had sons, right? Who are grown up. But like, yeah, I think it's good that as Christians, we think a lot about the sacrifice that Christ made, right? Specifically as the son, but I think it doesn't get talked about as much. And it has been, but not as much about like the relationship between them and what the Father did too, right? Giving up his son for the world. Like that is,
it's easy for me to say I would give my life for you. But if someone said, well, I want you to give up Jerry for this other one.
Yeah.
And what if it was to give you up for someone who's not even, related to me in the slightest, who I don't know from Adam? And I'd be like, can I take his place? No, it has to be.
Not only just some random person, but also people who are spitting on him and calling him a liar and hate him and hate you.
Putting him on the
and are
cross.
active against you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's, when we try and use our much smaller versions of these things, it doesn't do it justice, but still like trying to comprehend it in that way, it just makes it. And so here's something interesting. It's Father's Day tomorrow. Like maybe an opportunity on Father's Day to really consider the sacrifice that the Father has made. Like, I think that's an interesting thing. Like, we talk about Easter, and I think that during Easter time, when we're considering what Christ has done, it's really important to consider God as a whole, what he has done, right? And to consider each of those aspects, not just Christ's relationship to it. But, this is an interesting conversation given that it's Father's Day tomorrow, that as a dad, that opportunity you have to hopefully in an effective way emulate and bear witness to the father. And the interesting thing too is, like, marriage gets talked about a lot within Christian circles. Like, it's your opportunity as a man, you're to exemplify Christ's love for the church to your wife, and the wife, like, there is this beautiful relationship that is supposed to reflect the church, but like, it's not like that's the only way that God calls us to reflect his character and that personhood of his character. We are called to reflect the character of the Father as fathers, right? And so then it's like, I think it can be really easy, at least it has been for me, to go like, man, I really need to study the life of Christ, which of course we should. And so that I know how to act towards my wife. But it doesn't mean like, that's it, you're done. It's like, no, as a man, and all of us should of course be studying the Bible and the character of God consistently throughout in all three personhoods. But like, there is this opportunity for us to exemplify the Father as well. And so it's important that we have an understanding of his character and his actions and the types of things that he is willing to do and has done and says to do. So that's cool. That was my point. I said it's cool as an understatement, but I think it's cool, like, and maybe I'm saying something that everybody's like, yeah, dude, I realized that forever ago. But it's just like, we talk a lot about, wow, what a great opportunity is that man has been given this opportunity to exemplify Christ, but we also are given opportunities to exemplify the Father. And I at least for a long time hadn't considered that. I think it's cool.
And I like to think that, I think there's biblical pride, and that's not bad. I think there's a parental pride. I think that the Father looks at what his son did and he's proud.
Yeah.
And when I look at what my kids have done, when I look at what you three, have done, and Jude, I'm proud because
you might want to.
I get to feel like, you know what? I got to be there for that. I got to see them grow. I got to see them come into their own and mature. And it's, as a parent, as you get older, because I'm nearing 90, I like to,
You had me pretty late then. As the firstborn.
Late.
Well,
started at what,
60-something.
65?
So I look back now and I see the things that I have done or accomplished. It don't mean that much, but I see more of the accomplishments in my kids. So it's been a good ride.
Parenthood?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Happy to have been a part of it.
Well, I'm glad you were there.
Yeah, did my best.
Yeah, there were some low points.
I would
but
say
we got
probably
through
some
it.
rocky roads that I was a part of.
Yeah.
I know there were.
There's stories we won't tell.
Oh yeah. Well, you brought up the example of God, right, in being a parent, and it's no secret that you're a believer. You raised me in a Christian home. You and Mom did, I think, a very effective job. I often think about my early life and how much of the time that I spent, like I was homeschooled, right? So a lot of that time I spent learning, it was in a Christian environment, and I was being also taught the Word of God. And I just talked to somebody the other day on the Discord about my testimony. They asked me, how you came to be a Christian. I said, well, honestly, a big part of it is that when I was really young, we went to church regularly, but also we talked about the Bible at home. And I asked my mom one time, like, why is it that what is this? Like, what are we talking about? Why do we do this? Why do we go to church? And so I had parents who could answer those sorts of questions and help guide me to God. And it gave me a very good foundation for when I was older and I really committed myself to God. I had that foundation to fall back on. And what really I fell back on that foundation was because there was a period in my life where I really drifted from it and I had something to fall back on rather than just having to find it, at the beginning there, if that makes sense. But so it's no secret, right? I think in many ways, as one of your children, I saw that growing up. And then once I was no longer homeschooled, I went to a Christian school. I know you sacrificed a lot. You talked about sacrifice. You and Mom both sacrificed a lot. But in your own way, you sacrificed a lot of time and a lot of hard work to allow us to go have a Christian education, which I think is it's a big part of my life. But yeah, like I said, no secret that you're a believer. Who are some of the people that you would credit God having used in your life to reach you with the gospel?
So I got saved when I was 12, and I got saved at a deaf camp. I'm not deaf.
Anymore.
No.
Hallelujah.
No, I was never. So,
Anymore.
it's a miracle. So I grew up, my parents divorced before I was a year old. And my dad and I lived with his parents, my grandparents, on the farm where Jude is now. And I had two uncles. One uncle would battle alcoholism his entire life, and it would eventually kill him. The other uncle, who had a rough start as a child, but still he found Christ, was saved, and he went on to lead he ran a camp for deaf people in Tennessee, and it was one of the largest in the country. I mean, they would get 5,000 kids a week coming into this camp, and it was where these kids who were deaf could hear the gospel, could learn how to talk to other kids about sign the gospel, could lip read the gospel, but would learn how to not only learn the gospel, they would learn how to share it with other people in their deaf communities when they went back home. So my uncle running that, I got to go there for free because they just
You weren't deaf.
I would,
Because you weren't
so I would, here I am in this camp setting, and it was wonderful. I mean, it wasn't a bad, like, it wasn't just like out in the wilderness. They had swimming pools, they had everything. It was great. But I'm one of the few kids out of 5,000 who can hear. And so I learned a little bit of sign language. I learned, they can read lips across the room very well. But the gentleman who owned the camp, his grandson, all of his children went into the ministry. His grandchildren all went into the ministry.
Wow.
His name was Bill Rice. And so Bill Rice III was speaking one night at that camp. And, man, it was just as clear as, I couldn't have been drawn anymore. My heart broke. I knew what I was, a sinner. And I knew what Christ offered was salvation. And I accepted Christ. And then, so, my Uncle Ted was an influence. He didn't realize it at the time how much, but he was an influence. Still is. He's still running a deaf ministry today.
Yeah.
I
get his newsletter now.
Yeah. He's still out there.
What's it called? Spoken word, right?
Silent
word, not spoken word. Silent word.
Silent
That's
word.
the point.
And then,
sorry, Ted.
I was 12, and when I turned 13, the church that my dad and I went to started a youth group. And our first youth pastor was Crazy Larry. That's what we called him. He looked like Mr. Clean, bald head, big guy. You didn't want to mess with him, but his name was Larry, and he poured love into me. There were 12 of us on that original youth group, and it was just worked out that way. There were 12, and it grew to hundreds. And then when he left, Brother John became our youth pastor. John Smith, unique name.
Sounds made up.
In true fashion of the South, he not only became my youth pastor, he became my uncle because my dad married his sister.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. So for the rest of my teenage years, and when I met him, I was starting a rebellious stage. I was going the wrong direction, and he was the most patient man I've ever met. He was just there for me. And, when you're being rebellious, you don't listen to your parents, typically. But I listened to him eventually. And then through that, I started going back and listening to my dad. And if I had to say, now at the age I'm at, and I look back at it, my dad was the greatest influence on me. And it was through things he did that I didn't realize at the time. When, in true fashion as a kid, I didn't want to get up early. But if I ever had to, when I started wrestling, I would get up, at 5:30 in the morning to go to wrestling practice. And I would realize my dad's already been up for an hour reading his Bible and praying. And I knew from an early age that at a certain time, I knew where my dad would be sitting reading his Bible. And then I knew where he would be kneeling in prayer. And then my dad, things weren't gray for him when it came to God. This is what you needed to do to learn about God. And one of those things, going to church, fellowship, with other believers. You didn't miss church unless you were dead, dying, or dog sick. And, my dad went 16 years without missing a day of church. They would talk about it, and he didn't like that. Just ignore it because to him, that was just what you did, and I realized he was consistent. Now, he would never get up and talk to you about Greek or Hebrew. He would never, let's get into a theological discussion about the past, present participle. That just wasn't him. But if you asked him about the Bible, he'd tell you what he read, and he would read it and read it and read it. And people in town, that's how they knew him, and at his funeral, it was more evident than ever because my dad believed that the Bible said you should help the widows. My dad helped widows. If the Bible said if someone was poor, you need to be there for them. I had more people than I could remember telling me, hey, he replaced a washing machine. He fixed our hot water heater. He fixed my car. He helped me build a house, and he wouldn't let me pay him because I couldn't, and he was just consistent. And, as being a parent now, there's certain things that I wanted to put into my kids that came from my dad. And to me, that it was, the best way to honor him. And it wasn't just to honor him, but it was also because they were right. I people now that know you or know Jude now. Jude's getting to meet people that knew my dad. And it's funny.
They're like, you look nothing like him.
No, because Jude definitely looks different. But Jude can say, hey, I'm Jerry Crane's grandson. And people
like,
know exactly.
You must be able to fix my water heater then. And he's like,
Jude is now doing handyman work at Silent Word Ministries.
Really?
And he's like, yeah, Dad, I go over there and, they're like, hey, you can fix this. And Jude's like, YouTube? You can fix that.
That's so funny. I imagine they're like, wow, so the apple didn't fall far from the tree. It's in your blood. And he's like, yeah. Looking things
puts
up.
Puts away YouTube.
Yeah, my dad didn't have YouTube, but Jude's got YouTube.
Yeah.
So he was telling me, Dad, I had to run some wires. They wanted them hidden behind this bookcase.
Oh, okay.
He goes, and I'm just figuring out, if I punch a hole through this, they'll never see it.
Yeah. That is funny.
I don't know if that's the answer, but
someday they're going to move. Like, you know what? That bookcase would look better over there. Oh, my goodness. There's a 2-foot hole back here.
The whole wall's exposed.
Yeah.
She was like, the easiest way to put it behind the wall is to get rid of the wall entirely.
Yeah.
So just...
But he's, and Uncle Ted joked about to Jude, well, you can't replace Jerry. My dad. You can't replace Jerry because, we could tell him, hey, we need a new building built.
Yeah.
And he'd think about it for a week, and then a week later it'd be built. And Jude's like, yeah, I can't do that.
Nope.
But he's learning,
It's such a cool opportunity that Jude has to be down there. To be down there, I mean, in a cool way. There's not a lot of connection for us kids to where you grew up because we've only went there like 3 times. I mean, I went there that one time when I was 3 months old, so I obviously don't remember it. And then once when I was 10, and then once when Big Daddy died. Or that's what we called him. His dad, we called him Big Daddy. And, so I had only been there 3 times twice that I can remember. Actually, no, there was one other time when I was young that we went there, wasn't there?
I think you've been there 4 times.
Yeah, because I remember being there before the time we went down there when I was 10, and I definitely wouldn't remember it if it was the time when we were 3 months old, when I was 3 months old. So, so there's not a lot. There hasn't been a lot of connection like to that side of our family. Growing up, we didn't have a lot of that, and so I think it's really great that Jude gets to be down there and connect with those people. And when we talk about people that reached you with the gospel, there's something I wanted to mention that I think is really cool in listening to that story. There's obviously the people that very clearly and deliberately preached it to you, right? Like when you were 12 years old, hearing, what is Bill Rice III, you said? Hearing him give the gospel and doing so in an effective way, right? That demonstrated to you that we are sinners, that we fall short, that we need God, and that God has offered us a way, right? And it's through him and him alone. And so hearing it, and so the theology, right, of it all, or like the, understanding it matters, but him delivering it in a way that was effective and you hearing it and convincing you, like showing you the truth, mattered. But then you touched on something that's really great, which is like when we say who are the people that you would credit reaching you with the gospel, you talked about your dad and how, he didn't get into a lot of like talking a lot about it unless asked, right?
No, but I saw it.
But you saw it. That's what, like you saw him live it out. And I've been thinking a lot about this lately, especially with youth group. Like we kind of mentioned this earlier, but at Creekside, we just started youth group, and Levi and I are getting to be a part of starting it and running it and leading it with these kids. And I thought ours was big, but you mentioned yours at some point got to hundreds. We started with 52 students, which was a lot for the first time. And then 52, 10, 27, like it's going to fall somewhere in that middle range. But we've talked a lot, like the first week we talked about like, okay, the foundation of this youth group, we want it to be the foundation of what our lives should be founded on, which is the gospel. And that doesn't just mean knowing like the words, like what is it, like just say it. That's really important. But that means that if the foundation of your life is something, then when faced with decisions or actions or things that need to get done, whatever, then you are considering what the natural implication in your life of believing the gospel to be true and formulating your life based on it. What does that look like in your actions, right? And one of those things is sacrifice. When you talked about sacrifice earlier, so I think the huge thing to learn from what you talked about your dad, and I've learned from him, is his willingness, number one, to sacrifice for people. And I think that I know I've seen that in you. But then when you talk about his dedication to the word, right? And just the simple truth of the gospel is something that I think gets kind of lost when we talk about God a lot. Matt has used this analogy before. It was in that Stuco presentation, but he's like, there's this guy, one of his professors, that told him a story about how much he loved dogs. And when he was a kid, all he wanted was a dog. He really wanted a dog. He wanted a puppy. He kept asking his parents, and his parents were always telling him no. And so he would have dogs, toys of dogs, stuffed animal dogs, posters of dogs on the wall. He'd watch movies about dogs. He loved dogs. And then finally his dad did bring home a dog, a little puppy, and he was so excited, right? And then so, immediately they went to the kitchen, they put that puppy up on the counter, and they cut it open, and they started taking out its entrails and its organs and all these things, right? And well, there's the shocking part of the story. You're like, what in the world? And that little analogy just serves to show us, like, sometimes that's what we do with God, kind of. Like we just focus, like, that's the wrong way to look at a puppy. The purpose of a puppy is the relationship you have with it. And the purpose of the gospel is that God wants to be in union with us, to have a relationship with us. He wants that for us, and it demands that we have this relationship with him, but sometimes we dissect it too much. And something that I've learned from that grandfather, from your dad, is that, at the end of the day, it does me a disservice, and it does the people around me a disservice if I overcomplicate it. And I don't just live out the simple truth of the gospel. And that you can swing too far both directions, right? Overcomplicating it and oversimplifying it. Mm-hmm. And that's something that's maybe an issue with the larger church today. But it takes just this nice middle ground. And I think I saw that in the little amount that I did see him. I think I saw that in your dad, And so, when we talk about the people that reach us with the gospel, it's not just the people, right, that preach it when you're 12. I think it's great that you brought him up because he showed it, right?
If you've ever seen the movie Courageous, it's by the Kendrick brothers, believers.
That's the one about them as cops, right? Or is that fire?
Cops.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's the ending of it where it's actually one of the Kendrick brothers who tends to be in the movies himself rather than just direct them.
Yeah.
He's standing in front of a church and talking about the decision that him and his friends have made as fathers. And he's challenging them, stand up, fathers. Where are you, fathers, men of God? And every time I hear that, I get emotional because I always think my dad would have loved this part.
Oh yeah.
Because he wouldn't have said, that's me. No, but he would have agreed with it. And I would look at him and say, he was that man of God. He did stand up for what he believed in, and he tried to, instill it in his only child who was rebellious to a T. But he never gave up. I can always go back and think it's easy to gossip, especially if someone's hurt you. And my dad had plenty of people who hurt him in his life, but I never heard him say a bad word about them. And some of them were family, because family always cuts the quickest or hurts you the most. And he would just be, God loves them and so do I. Now he might say it in a southern way, like, bless your heart, But he I always say he was a man of a simple faith. And by that, I don't mean he was simple, but that he knew who he was in the relationship with God. And he knew what God had done for him. And he lived it. And, your kids watch. I may not have acknowledged it at the time when I was 16, but I knew the life he lived.
Yeah.
And, I knew the things he did. I knew the things he didn't do. And now as I'm older and I look back on it as a parent, I couldn't be more thankful. So, I got to say, I've got to see you guys grow up, and I've loved it. May not always agreed with you, may have aggravated the poo out of you at times, but I loved being a part of it.
I'm glad you've been a part of it. I'm thankful.
Yeah, there were some times you weren't.
Well,
I think a lot of it is like it's really important. Like, I'm not a parent, but like in my experiences, being the child of a parent, a lot of it is like I can't imagine that you get instant gratification from like all the sacrifices that you do, that it takes, because I know in my life I don't recognize the sacrifices that are being made around me and the hardships that are gone through for my sake until later when I can reflect on it and be like, oh shoot, like
this is what my parents did for me.
They love me so much more than I ever thought that I.
Very rarely do you tell your child, no, you can't do this, and they go, thank you, Father. I see what you have done for me in the future. You have saved me from this horrible thing.
But like, I think that it's like it's even more so like because it's a hard thing, and I know that there are lots of parents that are just terrible. Like they're bad, but I don't know like exactly what's caused them to be there, but I've got to figure like that it is just because of the difficulty of it. You don't see the fruits of that labor until much later, and you may never see it, but like even like looking back at like how your dad like did all of that, like not even, I don't think that him like taking his relationship with God seriously, that the first thing on his mind was to do it for you, because it sounds a lot more like he was doing it because he needed that relationship with God, because that's incredibly important. But doing those things, all that sacrifice, heavily impacts like, and yeah, how the children of those people live. And it's,
there were things that my dad did that made it look easy. Honestly, I look back and I go, when I was a kid, it was just like, but now I look back and I think, he didn't. It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
Because I didn't make it easy on him. Yeah. I was the kid that climbing out a window. And when you're a fat kid climbing out a window, there's a lot of chance to break something, which I was glad I never broke anything.
Yeah.
But, my dad, and his love was tough. It wasn't one of these, oh, it's okay, you'll be okay. No, if I got into a consequence, he would let consequence teach. Just for those who don't know, I got arrested at 15 for doing something stupid, very stupid. And my dad let me sit in a jail overnight because I did something stupid, and he thought, guess what? You make stupid decisions, you get stupid rewards. And the sheriff and my dad were good friends. My dad could have said, yeah, I'll be there in a second. Oh, it's okay. There's no bail. There's nothing like that. He did something stupid. Well, my dad said, hey, can I pick him up at 7 a.m. and then take him straight to school? And I'll tell you, you sit in a jail cell overnight with a drunk tank next to you, because they kept me separated. you don't want to go back. You're as a 15-year-old kid, you're thinking, okay, this is my life. Okay.
Is my dad ever going to come get me?
Does he not love me anymore? No, he loved me enough. And here's the thing. I guarantee my dad didn't sleep that night.
Right.
Because he was upset and he was worried.
Yeah.
But he knew I was safe, and he knew this is probably the best thing for him. And now there would be people who would say, I couldn't do that. Well, my dad could. And he did. And then I had to go to school the next day. And they're like,
Wearing the same thing you wore all night in prison or in jail, not in prison.
And it's just like, because I was with a friend and, we did something stupid. We stole some pop. We stole pop. And, my friend's like, dude, my dad came and got me in 5 minutes. Where were you? I said, I sat there all night. I listened to a guy tell me about his whole life story and smelled him tell me his whole life story. And he's like,
Did you ever expect your dad to come and pick you up? Like, did you stay up later, waiting for him to come and get you?
I didn't sleep
I
the
imagine
whole
you didn't
night.
sleep. Yeah.
Well,
sleep.
but was that part of the
I
mindset?
knew at some point he would. But I realized very quickly when the sheriff came back and said, your dad said you get to stay.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, so he told you.
Okay.
He goes,
okay.
yeah, he'll come get you at some point. And I'm like,
Which might honestly be better
Yay.
that he told you. Because if he didn't, you might be thinking the whole time, when's he going to be here? When's he going to be
Yeah,
here?
that's what I
could
was
they not
thinking.
get a hold of my dad? What happened?
Yeah. But when he tells you you're staying here, then you really think man, what,
Well,
you might have some reflective moments.
Yeah, and I had a realization right then. He let me stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't going to just bail me out.
Yeah.
And my dad had reasoning for it. And I figured it out later. And
Yeah.
it was because of situations he had seen with his own siblings where maybe if you bail them out too quickly and they don't get the consequence, they don't learn the lesson. Because even as believers, I believe God will help you. He'll be there. He'll get you through anything. But I firmly believe that God will let you suffer the consequences of bad choices.
100%.
He won't punish his children, but he will allow for consequences.
I mean, look at, consistently through scripture, right? Like David and
King David.
Like consistently, right? I mean, one big one is his sin with Bathsheba, right? God was there with David, but the baby still died, right?
Yeah.
Or seeing his son Absalom hang in a tree.
Yep.
Yeah.
God is there with him, but I was just talking to Matt about this, but it's Psalm 23, right? When he says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are with me, right? The valley's still there.
He's still walking.
God is with you, but God being with you doesn't mean the dark valleys won't be there. It's not like he's going to go, no, but we'll circumvent the valleys all the time. No, it's still there, but he promises to be with you, right?
And he's leading you through them to a better place.
Yeah, something else we've talked about at church a lot lately is and I think I was going to say it because you were talking about this with your dad. Sometimes that sacrifice of a parent isn't just a sacrifice you make. You sacrifice something of yourself. Sometimes you sacrifice, because you said earlier, sacrificing your happiness for theirs. Sometimes that sacrifice also, I think, is sacrificing their immediate happiness, right? And something that we know that God does for us is sometimes tell us no so that we don't wreck our life.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's that it's pulling back that immediate gratification for ourselves, or God takes something from us now that we think will make us happy, but in the long run can lead us to destruction. And so for your dad, it's even in that story and letting you stay in jail for the night, he's like, I could go there and so that my son doesn't feel sad and scared and all those things. And that's probably, like you said, hard for your dad to know I'm making a decision that's leading to my son feel scared. But also, he's willing to even do that. And you said earlier, what leads to a lot of parents being bad? I think one of those things maybe is that a lot of parents might not be willing, and I'm saying this as not fully a parent yet, but you see parents not willing to let their kids go through even any hardship or anything like that, always giving them everything that they always want and things like that. It's the spoiling thing also applies to immediately taking your kids out of situations they don't want to be in too. And what your dad exemplified there is, I think, something godly where he's nope, sometimes seeing through that dark valley, and in a way, your dad was there with you because he knew you were safe. He made sure he knew where you were if anything happened. I'm sure he talked to the sheriff, right? In a way, he was there with you. He ensured that you would walk through that in a way that was safe, but he still let you go through that for a reason, and he said no to picking you up so that you would later,
lesson.
and you would learn a lesson. And
I'm glad he didn't say put him in general population, because
There
that
you
could have
go.
been a whole nother experience.
yeah, can you imagine? You're like, what if whatever you had been doing had led to the soiling of your clothes? And he's like, well, I'm taking you to school. And you're like, well, I can't wear this, and then they give you a jumpsuit or something. You show up to school the next day in an orange jumpsuit, like.
They give you street cred, but
Yeah, true.
There were times, and there was a time I accidentally shot out the windows at the school
With a BB gun.
With a BB gun.
Yeah. And it wasn't even me pulling the trigger. I showed someone the BB gun that I happened to have in my car, which I shouldn't have. And he asked if it was loaded, and I said, yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't believe me, and he just
What a
pulled the trigger.
turd.
Well, it was a fully automatic BB pistol. And it went. That's how it
did
went.
that.
It went just like that.
Here,
And
1 second.
It
We can cut that out if Chris does a.
it blew the windows out above the lunchroom. And as soon as someone opened, there's safety glass. So you see 4 big windows with a little line going all through them. Someone opened those doors going to the lunchroom, and the glass just went, blew out.
Yeah.
I remember sitting in the principal's office calling my dad to come down to the high school.
Yeah.
He ran a hardware store. And he comes in, the gentleman who was with me, his dad comes in. The guy who was with me, who pulled the trigger, he's mad. And it's my fault because I brought the BB pistol to school.
And you
His
told him
son-
that it was loaded.
Yeah, his son had nothing to do with it other than pulling the trigger. So they walk out within minutes. My dad sits down with the principal and me, and him and the principal within 10 minutes figure out that, hey, guess what? My dad can get the glass cheaper, and me and my dad are going to install that glass in 48 hours during school. So my dad and I leave, come back with plywood, put the plywood up during school. Everyone's watching. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
And then I got suspended. And then 2 days later, we come back with full sheets of glass and a little rental lift. And my dad and we put the glass in. And I know for a fact that glass is still there because my dad made sure it would never come out. But I have all these kids watching and laughing at me. But my dad said, he goes, you're going to learn. There's consequences. And I had to pay for it myself.
Yeah.
The other guy should have paid half. Never did.
Did that's that school you took me there? I think when we were there to show me the
Up on the hill.
window. Yeah, because I've heard this story before, obviously, and I remember when we were out there, you were like, "Hey, I'm going to go show you my old high school or whatever." And you're like, "Yep, those are the windows.
Yep.
There's the windows."
Barring an act of God, they will not come out.
Or another BB gun, maybe.
Well, I don't even know. My dad had a coating.
Oh, special.
It was great.
flubber
He
or
ran
something?
this hardware store,
Yeah.
and they could get special glass in. And
That's cool.
he was like, "Yeah, it saved you $1,000, but it still
Yeah.
cost me like $2,000." And that was 1980.
That's like $2 million now.
Yeah.
So that was a long summer for me.
That was
Yeah.
a long summer.
Yeah. And
Well-
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was gonna say, well, I think I'm glad that we kind of said at one point, like, this is kind of a Father's Day episode because it is Father's Day tomorrow, and you're my dad. And I think it's very fitting then that one of the people we end up talking about too is your dad. And I have had 2 very different grandfathers growing up, but I've said before, I think that there's certain, on the surface, and one of them has been on the show, you can certainly see what there is for me to learn from him because he talks about the Bible a lot. He's got a lot of knowledge, and he's studied the Bible a lot, and he does talk about it a lot, right? He's pastored and those things. But I've thought for a long time, I think, especially since being a young adult, there's certainly something that I have to learn from both grandfathers. I think we talked about it here today, and I think that's really cool. So, happy Father's Day, Dad. I love you.
I love you too, Butternut.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I have had a lot to learn from you as well. And it's becoming a father. This will be technically my first Father's Day tomorrow, even though I can't hold him yet. I was thinking just this last week about, what are the things that I've learned from you about being a father, and there's a lot. And I'm glad that you brought up one of those things was sacrifice. I've always appreciated that I have been able to see the sacrifice that you have made for your children. And I obviously haven't seen all of them. Like Levi was saying, I don't know what all of them are, but I've had the privilege of knowing some of them. And I think it's taught me a lot. And one of those is just the amount of sacrifice you had to make, just to, like I said earlier, go to a Christian school. And I think that's incredible. So
Well,
Yeah.
I gotta say, I've enjoyed being your dad.
Oh,
And
that's
for
good.
those listening, if you'd like to leave a comment about if Jerry should name his child Jerry W. Crane the fourth or not,
Yeah, there's
please
a good,
let us know.
There's
Please.
a good poll. Let us know
Yep.
if you think I should continue the name on or not. It's a big topic of debate.
It's between Jerry W. Crane the fourth and Reginald von Pitterschmidt.
Yeah. If it's between those two, it's pretty clear which one we're going with.
Reginald von Pitterschmidt.
But thank you guys for being here. Thank you for listening. Like you said, yeah, leave a comment. Let us know if you think I should name my son Jerry. No, no, maybe leave a comment and tell us about your dad or your grandfather or both. What are some things that you've learned from your dad and or from someone in your life who has served a lot of that role, right? I know for some people they were not grown up with the privilege of knowing their father, right? But God does bring people into our lives, and if no one else, certainly Him, right? He is a good father. What have you learned from the people in your life that have been fatherly to you? I've heard people say this, and I think it's certainly true. As men, whether or not you have your own children, God has still given you the responsibility of being fatherly, right? And at different points in your life, at different ages, right? Maybe not for us now, but in some ways, right? And certainly in some ways, someday, even if none of us ever have children or do have, end up having children, it doesn't mean that the task of being like a father is not there, right? And so, let us know who are some of the people in your life that you are grateful for their example of fatherhood to you, and if that is your father, that's great. And talk about him in the comments below. Let us know on Discord. We'd love to hear about it, and we'd love to recognize the ways that they have exemplified God to you.
And let
Gospel.
them know.
Yeah, most importantly, let them know.
Yeah. Before you tell us,
Tell them.
Go into their Discord.
Go to your dad's Discord.
go to his YouTube page and leave a comment.
There you go. But thank you guys for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Dad, thank you for being here, for being a special guest on our show. We love you very much, and we love you very much.
Hold on.
We almost.
Oh my goodness.
I only have one
It's
job.
been like weeks since we did this, but it's been longer for Byron, and he remembered.
That's wild.
Can you tell me a joke?
We require all our
I
guests.
require all of our guests to tell me a joke.
Byron,
This
I
is
require.
my requirement.
All right. You've probably heard this.
Here's hoping.
Man and woman are on a plane, and this plane allowed pets and allowed smoking, and they're flying.
So it was like the 50s.
And this man lights up a cigar, and he's blowing the smoke right next to him into this lady's face who has a small dog. And the dog is just hacking.
Yeah.
I'm telling this joke wrong.
You are.
I don't even know this joke. I haven't heard.
You know this joke.
I know this
I
joke.
don't know this
You
joke.
Let me
missed-
start over. Let me tell you a different joke.
Yeah, we'll cut that out.
Let me tell you a different joke.
Tell it one.
And then I'll come back to this one. Tell you a different joke. A man's building a wall.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He needs 11 bricks to finish the wall.
yeah.
He goes to the store. They only sell them by the dozen. So
That's rough.
He argues with them. They won't change. They sell him a dozen. He finishes the wall. He has one brick left over.
Okay.
He throws the brick in the air.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
He just throws it in the air?
Throws it in the air. Kind of like Jesus take the wheel. It's Jesus, here's your brick.
Here's your
Okay.
brick.
So now that reminds me how I told the other joke wrong. Man and woman in a plane flying.
Yeah.
He's blowing the smoke in the dog's face.
Yeah.
Woman gets mad.
Okay.
Tells him put that cigarette out.
Yeah.
He says no. He blows smoke in the dog's face again. She tells him put that cigarette out. He says no. She finally gets mad. She grabs his cigar, throws it out the window. He gets mad, grabs her dog, throws it out the window.
Of the plane.
Of the plane. Now, they're a low altitude plane. So she starts screaming. Pilot says, what's going on? They tell him. He immediately lands the plane in a field. They get out. There's the dog hanging on to the wing by his little paws. And guess what's in the dog's mouth?
The cigarette?
A brick.
Oh. I don't understand. I don't understand.
As soon as you said they're smoking on the plane, I was like this. Oh, he's telling the joke wrong. He's telling the joke wrong. He's telling the joke wrong.
I don't even see how telling the joke right makes it.
You're supposed to start out with the brick,
brick
story,
joke, because you
and
throw
then it
the
sounds
brick into
dumb
the
'cause you
air.
just throw the brick
Yeah,
in the air,
and you're just like, okay.
There's no ending to it.
Yeah.
No punch.
And you're like, okay, fine, I'll tell a real joke.
Yeah.
Oh, now I get it.
I started it wrong.
Oh no. Well, you know what? We'll cut that part out.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's dementia.
So good.
It's
Wait a minute,
already
my
setting
president?
in. It's setting in. All right. Thank you guys for being here. We love you very much.
Roll the outro.
All right.
That's a good one.